Welcome to the third video of the third chapter. In this video, we are going to talk about strategies and their legitimacy, or the way we use strategies and the way others use strategies, and how we can interface with those who use a different strategy. But let's start from creating a common understanding around the word strategy. The word strategy comes from the Greek word strategos, which is composed by two distinct words. The first one is stratos, which means army or team or group, and the other one is agos, which means general or leader. The first use of the word strategy was for war. The most ancient and famous book around strategy is the Sun Tzu book, The Art of War. In the 1960s, the concept of strategy has been associated with management and business. Chandler's in 62 wrote, strategy is the determination of the basic long-term goals of an enterprise and the adoption of course of action and the allocation of resources necessary to carry out those goals. However, the most common views of strategy in game, war, or conflict of all forms has been to win over the counterpart, as in the sum zero game. And so basically, when I win, I have to find your weak points and make you lose. As long as the parts are opposing each other, I believe that's legitimate and it is logical to approach a situation with a strategy to win. Sometimes people, though, present themselves as if they're playing a win-win game, a sum of positive number game, and yet underneath they are playing a sum zero game. In these cases, the strategy tends to disguise the real motives and the real objectives. These type of strategies remind me of the most interesting character to me in the history of Florence, Niccolo Machiavelli, who lived in the 500s and was at service up until a certain point of his life to the Medici, the governing family of Florence. He is known for many things, and I believe he was one of the most clear analysts of how the power worked around him. But the phrase for which is famous right now is the phrase, the end justifies the means. I have to say that personally I don't follow his advice. But nowadays, most people are justifying all kinds of things they're doing because they have a goal that they have to achieve. So it's a possibility. There are people, governments, and business who live by that philosophy, and they use maliciously manipulative strategies. What is important to us here is to understand that there are people who use this approach while pretending they don't do that. They justify their actions through all kinds of noble causes. I do suggest to read The Prince of Machiavelli, not to do what he suggests, but to be able to identify the strategies you might come across in business and society. Because as much as these strategies are malicious, there is a way to relate and use them in your favor. If you look at the market today, you can definitely see how the market follows a sum zero game, how the competition between companies is pretty strong and they're trying to take parts of the market from other companies. It is based on how do I get around the other or how do I get a better offer than the other. Competition is based on comparison. One thing about price competition, the best price for product quality, is quite interesting. The more we compete between businesses, the less we are going to make profit. And even though the client benefits from our fight with one another, our profit will shrink while maybe the market is going to receive an even better price. But we then are going to be so tight to be able to make a better price, and life is going to be about reducing the profit just to protect your share of the market. This strategy is proven to be quite ineffective because it brings everybody down in the minimum possible gain to be able to make it. I would like for you to entertain a different strategy. As I said before, a sum of positive number strategy. A strategy that will leverage your unique offer not only in the product or service that you're selling, but in the relationship you're establishing with the client. Before getting into that, though, I like to talk a little bit about tactics. Now, we have seen that the strategy is in charge of the choices we make to get to the goal we want. Tactics are the implementation of the strategy on the ground, how we do what serves the strategy, how we carry out the choices dictated by the strategy. This part is quite relevant because most of the time is the tactic that makes the strategy work. For those who are aware, tactics are the fruit of their experience, the fruit of their mistakes in the past, and the fruit of their analysis of the environment they are engaging with. A good strategy could fail if we don't use the appropriate tactics on the ground. For a few years, I worked for a client who is specialized in buying diamonds. I remember going with him and in the bourse of Anvers and Tel Aviv, observing him negotiating with people from different parts of the world. The reason was that we wanted to synthesize what worked in his negotiation style to eventually reproduce it in other people. The way people were interacting with one another in general was very intriguing to me because they were handling the negotiation quite differently from the way I was used to see and do myself. But the tactics were very, very interesting. One of the tactics, especially in the Indian culture, was to be very friendly. It seemed like they were the friend with one another for so long, and when the time was coming to negotiate the price, they were leveraging the friendship and personal things. They were saying like, "How can you do this to me? I'm your friend," or "You know me from a long time ago. You can trust me," and all kinds of reasons that to me were very foreign. When I spoke with my client, he told me that that was the way some cultures approach the market, but it wasn't real. It was just some people's tactic. My client's tactic was the silence. It was doing few things, observing the stones, sometimes dividing them based on a common criteria, and making his offer. And then he would remain silent. At times, after a while, the other was talking and talking, and then he would just stand up and leave. I've seen sellers following him in the corridor and trying to close the deal at the price my client asked. But that was a very different tactic from everyone else, and it worked very well, also interfacing with this other type of tactics. Clean, basic, and dry. In his environment, he is still now one of the best. What I'm asserting here is that even if everybody use different tactics, you don't have to abide by their tactic to be able to get what you want in the situation. You can develop your own tactic that works for you, even with people who use a different one. To develop your own tactics, it's important to have a clear strategy and correct your actions as you move and as you proceed based on the results you produce. Then you can keep what works and stop doing what doesn't work. In time, your tactics will become very effective. Let me give you a couple of tactics to orientate yourself and detect what the other person is up to. One of the main things is not to be the first to share your interest and whatever you are trying to get out of the conversation. Invite the other to come out first. When the other describes where they are and what they want, you then have a more clear landscape on where to position yourself to satisfy your interest also, or dismiss the conversation altogether because there's no value for you. If the other plays a sum zero game, you know that the person is up to get the most out of you and not allow you to get as much as they are trying to get. Now, if you live by a sum of positive number game and you meet someone who lives by a sum zero game, most people would think that the sum zero game will take advantage of the other. But this is not true at all, because I assert that to play a game of positive numbers means that I am willing to win together with the other, but I'm not willing to lose while the other is winning. So if I see value in the proposition that somebody that plays some zero game, I then will put in place agreement that will protect me from that kind of possibility. In this type of context, I help craft many contracts, and the beauty of contracts, if you understand who you're dealing with, is to not only protect yourself, you can actually create clauses in such a way that you keep the integrity of the relationship, and whatever goes against that integrity will be economically penalized. At this point, even if the other tries to do some zero game, you're not only protecting yourself, but you're gaining money off of him trying to do it. Another tactic is never to react to provocation. It is very interesting how people use provocation to set the other off balance and bring the emotions in the conversation. By reacting to the other, we show our insecurities, the need to defend ourselves from a perceived attack. In sports, you can see that often. I remember in soccer, World Final in 2006, the final was between Italy and France. An Italian player, after a fall, whispered something to a French player, that was Materazzi to Zidane. And all of a sudden, this French player hit the Italian player, and the referee threw the French player out of the game while the Italian player was smiling. So to react to provocation is like detouring from your declared objective. And in doing so, you become weaker and eventually you do something to sabotage your own journey. To be able to not fall into provocation, you must remember your compass, where you are, where you want to go, and the direction you must keep. If you're able to do that, then you are able to not let any provocation distract you from your objective. Otherwise, you can blame the provocation or the person that who provoked you, but that is going to give you only the justification for your failure. The task of this video is going to be as follows. I want you to think about the strategy you've been employing up until now, even though you haven't decided it or it's just a spontaneous strategy. I would like for you to consider what is the strategy you've been implementing up until now. And if it is a sum zero game strategy, is it working for you? Is that the strategy you want to keep employing? Or would you like to try the sum of positive numbers strategy? I ask you to write what was the strategy for you up until now and what will be the strategy from now on. And I would like for you to explain a little bit more than just saying a sum of positive number or a zero sum game number. So please, in your words, just write it all down. And I would like for you to explain a little bit what it is. Then I like for you to implement the two tactics I just spoke about. In the coming meetings from now on, I ask you to start with a question for the others at the table to be the ones who start to come out with their interest and what they want. And then be the last to express your interest and your ideas after you've heard everybody else. And on the other side, I ask you to not give in to provocation. Be clear about why you are in the meeting and where you are going, and just keep the bar and observe what happens. Please write it all down on the logbox, and I will be writing my comments and my coaching for you. See you in the next video.